satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.
Welcome to Satellite Haiku. I'm Milo.
Yeah, welcome to the Yuga. I'm Sean.
The Yuga, like the Kali Yuga?
Yeah, well, that's just one of the Yugas, right?
Yeah, I guess it is.
This is the Kali Yuga. It's just, I'm in this mode where it's just hard to get into the flow of anything, partly because parenting, like I feel like I drop the kids off at school and then I do like a workout and I eat a little breakfast or coffee and then I like get situated to work on something and it's like, oh shit, I got to go pick the kids up. And then I pick them up and then they're home and then I'm going to drive them, to hop keto or, dance class or baseball practice or whatever. And it's like, okay, all right. Now, then I'm home again. And then there was a day last week where I spent 4 hours driving.
Ooh, that's like old school soccer mom kind of thing.
Yeah. Oof. And, I'm just being Mr. Dad because I don't have a job and my wife works. But man, it's a lot. It adds up to a lot when you're not splitting it up. And it's hard to get. But the other reason it's hard to get into the flow of anything is just, when the world is burning, it's like everything else feels just kind of just sort of absurd. You know what I mean? I remember feeling like that during COVID too. Like going to work, and being on a Zoom call and talking about how can we measure the conversion rate of this particular part of this sign up form to see if people are dropping off? And you'd spend 3 weeks of meetings on that question. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of COVID, it was just like, what the fuck are we doing?
Right.
And then Uvalde happens or something. And you're just you go to work like it's a normal day. And it's like, all I'm thinking about is those kids right now. This is so weird to do this work thing. And so it's it just feels hard to focus on anything else because even when I have the focus time, it just feels weird. Everything else just feels what's the point? What this is such a silly thing to be thinking about and working on right now. But it isn't. I mean, it isn't, right? We have to do those things. You have to do the rivets.
But so I'm going to copy paste because I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I have, I wanted to go back and revisit the sort of when I with my first wife, the mother of my children, we had this we did a tag team.
Yeah.
So I took the kids, and she was a teacher, so she would come home around 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would hand the kids off, and then I would start I was a freelance illustrator and a photographer and stuff, so I would start cranking away late into the night sometimes.
Yeah.
But I do remember this sort of hippie commitment, wanting to give the kids a parental support during that period, up until high school, And
you want to, on number one, you want to, and number two, you it's selfish too, because you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And the time goes by and you realize you're missing out on their, all the cool stuff you get to do with them and watch them do. And there's a selfish side of it too. It's you don't want to miss out on that stuff as a parent.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember thinking well, and there's also data to show that when you have parental input into your school, you do better in all metrics, you do better at homework, you do better, so I was kind of there trying to just give them that step up that they would need, to, I don't know, I guess optimize the parenting.
I know. We've talked about this before. I have a little bit of an allergy to that kind of discourse, but I get it.
No. And again, I did this 25 years ago, and I think that helicopter parenting sort of term and the culture shifted because back then it was just different,
But just the measure and optimize, right? That's a culture that we are very much in that culture, right? Moneyball, we moneyball the world. We try to moneyball everything, right? And I get that. And at the same time, anyway.
Well, and the other thing is I definitely instilled...
I'm not putting it down. I totally get it. And I participate to some extent.
I instilled in my kids the idea that you're going to have a much richer, purposeful life if you do something that you love where you're helping people than if you're just trying to acquire the most wealth and stock.
If you're just doing what we do, we drift through life. Like there's a level to which or what we've talked about, like the flip side, there's a level to which, that my allergy to all that is a little bit of an excuse to just chill. But then that doesn't get you anywhere, right? Like then you end up sort of drifting from one thing to another, and that has its own upside. But it's also like, you come to where I am now, and you go like, what have I done?
Yeah, this is the theme of the whole show today because I feel that way. I felt that way for quite a while. We've kind of touched on it, even in personal conversations. But yeah, it's an interesting. Back to your point of like. So they remember when the New York Times, the headline was after World War II, after they discovered the concentration camps and the Allies invaded Germany, they said, God is dead. Like that was and then came this nihilistic culture of like, well, what matters? Like what is important? It's all bullshit. There's no, religion is dumb. Like
postmodernism kind of came out of that. Like everything is relative.
And then didn't communists...
Nothing has a fixed meaning, all of that. Like, I think that all came out of that same sentiment.
I left the pandemic and my 7 years in the corporate wilderness with that same sense of like, And I remember like putting Albert Camus, what was his book, the one he wrote that was sort of the...
Camus. Yeah, The Stranger, maybe, or...
Yeah, it was like where he introduced this idea of like, there's nihilism, that's all there is, but can you derive meaning from these little things? And I feel like a lot of like European films will depict people who are just like deriving a tremendous amount of worth and meaning from like cultivating their little herb garden and walking to get a piece of bread, like at the corner, you know what I mean? Like, and I try to do that. I tried to do that during the pandemic with sourdough, with fixing up the house. I feel like, but it's true that this particular conflict does have that sort of overtone of like, it feels like there are people.
It's just one more layer. Like this is a really, really big disruption in reality and in just the overall sense of the world. The future might be okay, and it's like maybe the biggest one in the last 20 years. But it's just one more layer on so many other things, right?
Yeah. One thing that occurred to me this morning, like just scrolling the New York Times, is listening to this Trump's rhetoric around, hey, if you attack the Qatari natural gas sites, we'll attack yours. We don't want to, but we'll blow it to smithereens. And I remember thinking that like, set aside, like, jump ahead in the future.
Meanwhile, that's what Iran said to Israel, like and then Israel preemptively attacked Qatari's thing. So, I mean, Iran. So Iran actually just retaliated.
Yeah. Anyway, so
it wasn't even like, it was the opposite of what Trump said. Like so much of what he does. Anyway, go ahead.
Jump ahead to, let's skip over the part where 1 billion people starve, because that's a separate conversation, and it's so deep and intense. Let's jump ahead past that horrible catastrophe that could occur, because we're talking about fertilizer, we're talking. So then skip ahead, and it's like, if you wanted to return to an alternative energy path where the whole world was trying to do it together, this dude might be the catalyst that gets us
That's
there.
why I started with Welcome to the Yuga, because I really do feel like, like as bad as it all is, like, okay, so the thing I was thinking about on that same thread was that like, there isn't anybody, like if you had wanted to just end American hegemony, if you wanted to just like dismantle American hegemony on the planet, and you couldn't have formulated a better strategy.
No, and hired a better guy twice,
Right. So like American power is collapsing, American wealth is collapsing, American influence is collapsing, right? And I was just thinking like, oh, that like as an American, it sucks. Like we are shooting ourselves in the dick, right? Like over and over again, You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like
yeah.
I was going to say the foot, but it's worse than
No,
like it. That doesn't do it
it's the
justice,
dick.
right?
Both
like,
balls in the dick. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're like. I mean, first we started with punching, and then we're like, punching isn't quite doing it, right? Where's my shotgun?
By the way, there's a checkbox in when I upload to YouTube the video, and you scroll down, and on the left it says, "No, it's not for kids."
Yeah,
but shooting yourself in both balls in the dick is not for kids. This is
that's some spicy language as some hot sauce. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't design a better plan for just dismantling American power and influence and wealth in the world. And the dollar, like countries are trying to figure out how to escape from, the dollar as the global currency, because they're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, and people are looking at American bases and going, it used to be sort of a guarantee of safety to have an American base here.
Yeah.
And that just seems like a bad idea to have an American base. And
because we didn't help them. We didn't protect them.
And then you got countries waking up like Australia. It's like, wait, why are we letting U.S. aluminum companies just pillage our land for bauxite?
Yeah.
Like what do we get out of that deal, right? And so, and then you have scientists and researchers that are like, whose grants and funding have been cut off because of Doge bullshit, right? And you got Doge bros that are trying to explain what they think DEI is, and people at the other end of that got their funding cut, and the court said you can't, that's illegal, but Trump doesn't care what's illegal, so they're not getting any, so they're just leaving, right? Like all the brain drain that's happening. It's just on every front we are destroying American power, wealth, influence, virtue, all of it, right? Mm-hmm. But then on that note of virtue, the flip thought I had is like, but we're like, that power was not used for good a lot of the time.
A lot of the time, it's true.
So and I was thinking about this as I was watching the World Baseball Classic in the U.S. lose to Venezuela, right? That was like symbolic victory if there ever was one, right?
Awesome. Yeah,
and it was like, it was sort of like watching, it was like watching the Soviets lose in 1980. It was like watching the American team. It was like, oh, we're the bad guys. Like what the American, like nothing against those players on that team, whatever. But what the U.S. team represents watching that tournament is like, oh, they were just like, it was just the same as if it were Putin's men out there.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, we're the global bad guys. We're the big bad world power, and we lost to Venezuela. And I was kind of like really happy for Venezuela, because I'm like, oh yeah, they beat the bad guys. I was like, oh wait, we're the bad guys.
We
so like on the one hand, we're dismantling and destroying global U.S. power hegemony, but like good riddance on the other hand. And on the other hand, my kids have to grow up in whatever comes next. And on the other hand, like it's this thing that we've all been growing up in needs to end anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like so many different swirling, competing thoughts about all that.
I love that you started the show with the Kali Yuga, because the whole point of it is this acceleration, sort of this, a series of catalysts that kind of swirl into the chemical mix to just speed up the change, Mm-hmm. And, that does feel what's happening. Now, it's interesting because if we go back to Neil Postman, mm-hmm. Amusing ourselves to death with his, his theory back in the late 80s about what good does it do you to know about the serial killer in Austin? That was the mm-hmm. example he always gave, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like in this case, we do need to keep an eye on what's coming. And not that we can prevent like empty grocery store shelves and, but we need to, I don't know. I mean, honestly, my parents are doing. I
mean, we need to be clear and open-eyed.
Yeah, clear. I like that. Clear and open-eyed about what's happening. Mm-hmm. My parents, for instance, they just went to a training on how to protest legally mm-hmm. at the No Kings rally. And my mom said, I don't really want to go, but I'm gonna go, you know, like down to they're going to an outlet mall, which is really funny in Florida. It's like they're going to an outlet mall that has plenty of parking, and then they're going to walk
air
around.
conditioning and
I'm not sure if they're going to be outside or inside.
And,
yeah. It's actually
you know what? Good for them.
Good for them. Yeah,
right?
it's great. They're going to hold us.
I mean, and there's another. I mean, speaking of Florida, right? Like even Trump, like in that American hegemony, it was almost like even MAGA. It was like, you know what? We have all this support, this unified MAGA coalition. What could we do to just completely fracture our coalition?
Yeah, like it's fascinating.
It's super fascinating.
And especially as the midterms are coming. This dude is like, you know, I have a great idea. Let's destroy the world.
Right. And I guess the other thing too that I hope gets destroyed really soon because it's long overdue is this idea that Trump has any reason for doing anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's this constant search, even across all media, of like, why did Trump say this? Like, what did he mean by that? Right. Like, or Pete Hegseth even like echoing this something that Trump would say by saying no quarter for our enemies. And there's this all like, why would he say that? Does he know what that means? Is he really advocating for war crimes? You know, it's the same kind of discourse, the same kind of reaction that happens every time Trump says something or does something. Greenland, Canada, whatever. Like on the one hand, it's dangerous. On the other hand, we shouldn't work too hard to look for meaning and coherence. It's just Trump just says shit.
Yeah.
And he just does shit. Like that's the reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, well, why are we at war? Like last week Trump said this was our goal. And this week he said this was our goal. And what could it be? What could the goal be? Is it Israel? Is it regime change? Is it nuclear? Don't ask Trump that question. Like he doesn't know. He just does shit and says shit. And he has, unfortunately, has a bunch of people around him that try to go, oh shit, Trump wants Greenland. We gotta like roll on that.
Yeah.
And it was just something he fucking said one day, right? Like, but then you have a bunch of people but then he's fundamentally lazy. Like, have we heard anything about Greenland? No. Like, as soon as something gets a little bit complicated or difficult or challenging, he just drops it completely.
I mean, in some ways, he's a little bit like us. We only have enough bandwidth to take the kids to school, and then we're going to go shopping. Like, and he
that's
really,
why people love him. He's like us.
He spent a ton of time this week dealing with the Kennedy Center. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
How are we going to shut it down and remodel it? And he's talking all about it, looking at architectural drawings. He's not thinking about the war. And then when people
and the White House too, like he doesn't want to go through like the difficult. He's just fundamentally fucking lazy.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I want to renovate the White House. Like he could. He's supposed to go through legal channels and stuff. He's like, just call the bulldozers, right?
Yeah. By the way, he owes
or the pardons, right? He just like, we should pardon people from January 6th and like, all right, but we shouldn't pardon the violent ones. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. And then it's like,
everyone.
How do we identify the violent? Oh, it's going to take like a couple hours to go through the list. Oh, fuck that. Just pardon everybody, right?
Yeah.
He's just fundamentally like a lazy motherfucker.
By the way, he owes the demo crew that demoed the East Wing.
Yeah.
He hasn't paid them.
Of course, because he wasn't allowed to do it in the first place.
Right, but who would ever work for this idiot after
I don't know.
Decades and decades of him ripping off all of these
it's like that old thing about like I didn't think the leopards would eat my face.
Right.
When I voted for the leopards eat your face party, right? Like
yeah. Or like if someone, cheats on their partner with another partner and then later on they get married and then they're like, oh my God, you cheated on me. Who would have known? It's like, well, kind of obvious right there, like
right. Somebody has a history of cheating. Like, oh, they cheated on you? Wow.
Well, they love me so much they won't cheat on me.
Count me so surprised. Yeah.
But no, so
it's like, the guy who's lies all the time about everything didn't tell the truth about something.
Right. I think we should keep an eye on Kushner. I think Kushner is skulking around behind the scenes, being both a deal maker and he's basically the diplomatic corps for Russia, Ukraine, Israel,
he's one of the Rasputins in the circle. But do you think? I don't know how much Kushner is ideological or just greedy. You know what I mean?
That's a good question, but he's willing to. I mean, he's willing to go and talk to the Russians about Ukraine, and you know that he's trying to find a way to invest in whatever comes next and somehow make a lot of money. So
yeah, I mean, he seems like a player, like a money player. Like his main thing seems to be like, how can I profit out of? How can I maximize my own flow of money from global politics?
Yeah.
Right. Whereas somebody like Stephen Miller is just an ideologue to his soul.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Like Stephen Miller is not trying to get wealthy. He's trying to get whiter. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. So anyway, so an interesting thought would be, I mean, like, you know how we were talking about we've been talking about the script, and it's been hard for me to sort of push it forward. Part of the reason is I'm kind of keeping this wary eye on Hollywood and the fact that all the productions have gone down to zero. Like no one's making anything, and it's for a variety of reasons. It's a complicated kind of thing. But in the meantime, I'm plugging ahead. Every day I find sort of some kind of meaning in trying to learn that new program, DaVinci Resolve, which is a new editing program. Yeah. And I love it. And I'm spending like late into the night learning these very nerdy things. And it feels somehow hopeful, if that makes sense. Like preparing for the ability to edit the thing that we shoot, you know? So just to give you that input, like that is something.
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, the thing that I'm trying to work on is like we talked about, and I forgot about it until yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, shit, that's what we said, was to try to refashion that script into like, what if we made it a 3-minute film? Yeah. Like what would it look like as a 3-minute film on TikTok or something? Yeah,
I love it.
So I'm trying to figure that out. And I wrote down a few other ideas, like I said, that for funny little shorts that could be fun to put together. So, but the problem I'm having again is just like, I think of these things and I'm like, but that just seems like in the face of everything that's happening. Like, why would anyone put their energy into making that or watching that for that matter? But like, I know the answer to that question, which like, it's a rhetorical question, but I know that the answer is like, because it's important. Like we need to keep living. That's the whole point.
Living.
Like,
we need to keep
why
art.
Are we here but to live? And you know, like, yeah.
One of my neighbors is a filmmaker, and he's retired now, but he made a film called Spun, and it was about Jason Schwartzman plays a meth addict.
Okay.
And Brittany, the woman that died,
Brittany Murphy was the sort of the romantic foil that's in the film. Yeah. Anyway, so he makes this film. It ironically has it was directed and edited by this Swedish metal video guy. He made his name making music videos for metal bands. Okay. And he's known for having the most number of edits in a film. In fact, this film I think is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most edits, because they want it to feel kind of chewy, like you're on meth. So everything's like zzz, zzz, like everything is cutting. Every 3 frames he's cutting to the next, you know. Anyway, so they release this film. It's actually dark and very intense, but quite profound. And they released it on September 12th. 2001. Oh. And he was joking. He said, like, if you want your piece of art to never, ever be seen by anyone in the world ever again, release it on September 12th, 2001, because if you want it to be forgotten about instantly, not even forgotten because no one noticed it in the first place.
Never saw it.
You have to notice something in order, and it has to be in your brain in order for it to eventually be forgotten. It never even made it that far. Yeah.
What's odd is that I had done a show, and my brother came in, and it was like during the summer, August, September, and it was that year, and it was really red, and there was a lot of like muslin and kind of these sort of lines. And my brother came in and said, "Ooh, I feel like I'm inside of a wound, like of a bandaged wound." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm just vibing something. And then 9/11 happened, and it all kind of made sense. Like it felt like there was this weird premonition thing. And my paintings, like I launched them in later that month, and they all sold out. And I remember my gallery owner said, when there's a war or a catastrophe or some sort of like tragedy, a lot of people turn to art and want to acquire something beautiful that sort of gives them hope, gives them, makes them think about something other than the war,
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. Later on, the next year, no one bought anything because their economy had tanked, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a kind of fatigue too. Like it's like with escapism, maybe, because it's like maybe the response, like the emotional response to that stuff also is like drugs, when you're like a heroin addict, like each high becomes less pleasurable and you need more to get high until it's not really giving you any pleasure anymore. It's just preventing you from withdrawing, right? Like and so not to get super dark, but I guess like I feel like the sort of the daily onslaught of just shit news and just the feeling of dystopia has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
So like what I get out of escapism feels like it has diminishing returns in a way.
Yeah.
In a way for me, like, which is where, because this is why I'm struggling right now with this question of like, why would I work on that? Why would I focus on that? Like, because I've been fighting that battle on some level for a while now with all the shit, but it's just like, I was able to win that battle psychologically with myself. And it's just, it feels harder to win right now.
Yeah. No,
like it's not a new battle.
No.
And there's a sort of a level of fatigue that I'm feeling with that battle.
Yeah. I know there was I've been, so for probably 15 years, I've noticed that when I'm feeling anxiety about the world, like feeling sort of in this general
malaise,
you could almost think of it as like I have this problem right now where my headphones are making like it's called a ground loop hum. It goes like, it's like that, but like your adrenal glands are doing that,
Yeah.
And it's wasteful. It's a waste of energy. But I always talk about the sodium vapor lamp out in the parking lot at Target. As you're walking out to your car, it's like, and like all of that noise is wasted energy because something's vibrating instead of producing light.
Right.
But anyway, so I found that I was really drawn to build mechanical devices that can move the camera smoothly. And for a long time in the living room, I had these rails set up and these rubber wheels.
I remember Loomis on Dog Ears, like he created like dolly tracks. And stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And you every time I would walk by it, I would push it and see if it was absolutely effortlessly, like almost zero friction, And something about that was very, very comforting to me.
Satisfying. It's like an ASMR type thing, but in the physical world. Yeah. But no, I hear you.
Yeah.
Do you tend toward, you mentioned anxiety, like I don't tend toward anxiety. I tend more toward depression with this stuff. You tend more toward anxiety?
No, I think more toward depression. I think but those two go hand in hand. And a lot of times when I talk about that sort of buzzing sound, it is so low that I'm not like, I don't feel like butterflies like before a big talk or something. It's not like that at all, but it's definitely like, like in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I got to do the taxes, but it's possible that no one's going to be able to collect the taxes. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's that feeling that like,
why?
What if if an electromagnetic pulse device, if someone like sets one off and like,
we need that right now, to be honest, we need like a major, massive sun flare just to kind of, just to speed it all up. A massive solar flare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone said, what do you think about this? There's this whole, there's a bunch of, long-term 1,000-year-old religions that are vying for this messianic, how do you say it? Messiah, the Messiah to return, right? Like so, so the
like eschatology or whatever.
Yeah, the Zionists are hoping that this will, accelerate the return of Jesus, or I guess Jesus, yeah.
Well, the evangelicals think that the land of Israel is important for the return of Jesus.
Right.
The Jews don't. The Jews aren't super interested in the return of Jesus.
No, but they're interested in the first guy coming.
Yeah.
Like the coming of God. Like, as
Right.
Well,
the age, they have their own sort of like
Messiah
and age of salvation that's coming.
Yeah. And then you've got, I remember I'm being mean here, but I remember talking to these evangelicals who told me, like, if you take Jesus as your savior, you'll be saved. And I was like, I have a question. So if it says in the Bible that 144,000 people will be saved. Like, if you get me to become
Jehovah's
one,
Witnesses,
wouldn't that knock you off the list?
Right.
Like, I don't,
aren't you lowering your own
chances,
your own odds?
It doesn't seem like a very big list,
Right. It's a fixed number. So like there's a zero sum to it. Why would you want to recruit more people?
I have a theory about like those, how we have these sort of ancient stories that kind of like we have Adam and Eve stories around the world, and we have the hero's journey. What's his name?
Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell's book's right over there. And he loved to look at these ancient stories. I think that perhaps the 144,000 might have, that idea that they'd be, quote, saved, might have been like an event horizon, like an asteroid hitting the Earth or a volcano going off that produced an ice age, for instance, where only a small number of humans survived through that window.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that sort of would make sense if like only the people in the tropics could survive because everyone else froze to death. So then maybe like that became into the lore of human lore of like,
it's just part of our lore. And as humans distributed themselves around the planet, like
it became more
people
sort of
carried and sort of modified, or that lore sort of, evolved over time down different branches, I guess.
Yeah, I have no evidence to support this theory.
But it's an interesting idea,
right?
Yeah.
Like, because where would that come from? Like, why is everyone dies except for 144,000 people make it through to the promised land?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's interesting. It sounds a little bit like one of those, what do we call them? Like a famine event through which only a certain number of people can pass. And which filters the gene pool, actually. Filters based on criteria.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't just those big global ice ages and stuff. Like, just human existence was like that at one point. Like, if you were part of a nomadic tribe and there was a severe drought, at some point you just decided, like, or not even a nomadic tribe, like say an agrarian culture, and you had settled somewhere, but like for whatever reason, that place that you settled became, it was just not working out. And you had to move on. At that point, you're faced with like, do we carry the old people with us, or do we leave them behind, right? Like, well, we can carry them, but like that's not gonna. Maybe we can't carry them for 200 miles. Like, I hope we find a better place, and at some point on that journey, you're like, well, I can't carry this sick person anymore, so I'm sorry, dude, we gotta leave you here.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, humans were filtering in that way, even in smaller scales, settlement by settlement, right? Throughout our history. Yeah. What? Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say that made me think of, and I want to preface this by saying that I'm a kind, loving person who loves my neighbor, right? But no, but what I mean is that, like, I remember listening.
No, I'm just laughing about where this, I'm really curious about where that thought's going. Go ahead, Don.
No, I remember listening to these economists, talking about like GDP per capita and why it's hard for, say, like a country like Sudan, to increase their GDP. And they were saying how,
aside from the fact that the rest of us are just extracting their natural resources.
Right. There's a lot of sort of pressures on that particular, let's just take those. They were looking at mathematically infant and child mortality. So they said, imagine and just think of it as units of input. Like if a child is born and the mom during the 9 months is kind of out of commission in terms of like, she can't really lift as much hay and stuff, so she's like kind of, it's an investment to be pregnant. Yeah. And then you have to like raise the infant for at least 2 years before it can run around and, do its own thing. Then you have to train it to do something. And basically, let's say in modern society, until the child is 18 years old, you're investing more than you're getting out of it, right?
Yeah,
that's just
like even in really
units of time.
In cultures where our kids are starting to carry their own weight, like at a much younger age, maybe like 7, 8 years old, they're doing stuff, but it's still maybe not crossing over into they're giving more than they're getting, right?
Right. And I would
probably not until they're 18, but
I would argue that would sort of play into the idea that in a culture like that, where you make little kids not go to school and start to contribute.
Yeah,
to the
I'm thinking ancient civilizations where there wasn't school, but yeah, so today.
Just for the sake of today, like let's look at Sweden versus, I don't know, Ghana, right? And they say, if we just look at this number, which is infant mortality and childhood disease and death, childhood mortality.
Right.
Anyone who dies before they can pay back the investment for them to become a contributing member of society is a loss.
Is a net
on
loss,
the spreadsheet. Net loss on the spreadsheet of that tribe or society. And so that's why when you look at a country like Sweden, where they have tremendously low infant mortality and tremendously low child mortality, they have a long payback period for each adult. Let's say they live to 80. So 62 years of payback for the 18-year investment. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking like, it's horrible to sort of bring it down to those sort of units of input and output. But that's kind of what an economist would look at and say, that's why Sweden has a higher GDP than Ghana. And it's one of the reasons. I mean, other than that colonial powers are extracting and beating them up and killing them, and, civil war or whatever, religious wars, whatever.
Right, yeah.
But that's one main thing that if we looked at and said, if you could increase infant mortality and reduce childhood mortality, you could easily produce a society that's able to pay back each of their inputs for the child. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. In a country like it's interesting because as you're talking, I'm obviously, maybe not obviously, I'm trying to draw the comparison to the U.S. and like the U.S. versus Sweden in that equation, and the thing that where the sort of the equation is breaking down for me is literally just in the premise of payback who, right? Payback society, right? And I think like Sweden and the US have fundamentally different notions of who you would like, who should benefit from that paying back, like what, like why you would make that investment and for whom, right? Like here it's really about like,
well, Jeff Bezos wants your kid to work for him.
How does that help me, right? Like, you know what I mean? I have my kids in private school, so fuck everyone else, right? Or whatever, right? Like that's the mentality here. There's not this, and I hate that about, American culture, this selfish culture that we have, which I don't necessarily like. From last week, we were talking about how I don't think most humans are fundamentally like that. I think that more than I would like are fundamentally like that. And there's a sort of I think there's a very small number of humans that are naturally really just selfish people and maybe borderline sociopathic, psychopathic, or not just borderline, like over that line. And those people just don't care about anybody else at all. And I think a disproportionate number of those people become powerful in society. So they have an outsized influence relative to their actual raw numbers. But then I think there's a swath of people who are persuaded by the propaganda that those people produce. You know what I mean? Like there's people that buy into the selfish ideas of like taxation is theft and stuff like that, right? But they haven't really thought about it all that deeply. They're more just like, because you see plenty of people in America who will say taxation is theft, the government's corrupt, and then they're living off welfare and disability.
Right. Yeah.
their GI, their like military pension or whatever. Like,
or I love to always point out, because everyone should know about it, is that you can be a fucking Silicon Valley libertarian who doesn't want to pay any taxes until Silicon Valley Bank goes belly up, and then you're like, feds, where are the feds?
So there's a lot of in the people who are part of that equation, there are some people who are just truly, genuinely, to their core, selfish. I think that's a really small number of people. And there's a bigger number of people that just get propagandized into thinking that's how we should be. Yeah.
I wonder,
the rest of us are pretty much happy to have a society.
I wonder if, and I'm just looking for like big patterns here, but you know how we say like unchecked capitalism always ends up as a feudal system.
Yeah.
And so that's like, imagine like out of this vast equal group, you end up with this lord or noble with a castle, and you wonder if that person is a narcissistic, a malignant narcissist.
Yeah.
And just is hyper focused on being selfish and acquiring the most. And that those people might be like 1 or 2% of society, as you say, like a very small number, but they
have
an
outsized
impact.
power because that's what they're most interested in.
Yeah,
and they're skilled at that.
Yep. And we don't have a feedback loop to sort of punish them for behaving that way.
Yeah, not only that, they intentionally create a feedback loop. Like they create a media ecosystem to promote their worldview, right? And things like that. So they have and they're smart enough to know what they're doing with that, right? Like, so yeah, we don't have a good immune system for that.
Yeah, we don't really have a way to sort of, and if you think about,
but if you look at how people really want to live in the world and how like, if you ask people who are Trump supporters, say like I always think about like the union guys you canvassed, right? Like if you really sat down with that person and you went issue by issue and you were like, do you want school to be affordable for your kids, right? Do you want school to be paid for? Like, do you want to pay for your kids' school or not, right? For things like that. Or do you want healthcare, whatever. If you went issue by issue, you would find an incredible amount of common ground with that person, I bet.
Yeah.
But they've been propagandized to think that, again, taxation is theft, all these things that are being sort of like promoted by that sociopath, malignant narcissist person at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think, and what's interesting, because I do want to point out that like, I feel like that's where leadership is really important.
Yeah.
Because you can sort of Jedi mind games. Hey, it's not, these aren't the drones you're looking for. Like you can do, no, if you're a good leader, you can do that, right?
Yeah. Like Talarico, I think has been really good at sort of redirecting that conversation really well.
Yeah. Now, I back to the unionists, like 50% about 50% of the unionists voted for Trump. And let's take the Teamsters. Sean O'Brien is his name. He was the leader of the Teamsters. And people were like, why won't you go talk at the Democratic convention? And he goes, well, we polled our members. Yeah. And there was, 48% of them wanted to identify as Republican and vote for Trump. Yeah. So we're not going to like tell them who to vote for. And I was like, I would talk to my friend who's a longtime unionist, got me into it. And he was like, that's why all unions spend tremendous amount of time endorsing pro-labor candidates. Right. Because we want a candidate that will protect the things you like about being a union member. Yeah. So the leadership needs to say, I don't care if you fucking like his makeup, his vibe, the way he does his hair, his dirty mouth, the fact that he fucks, porn stars. You need to vote for the person who will protect your union membership benefits.
And that part of that conversation, though, involves this like hierarchy of self-identity, right? Like, what does the person identify themselves as? Like, like first, you talk to that guy, it's like, MAGA. What is his number one thing? Is he like American, Christian, male, hetero, right? Boomer,
college educated, or working class.
Working class. Union is somewhere on that list, right? Yep. Arizonan. Yep. Like whatever does professionally is his actual job. Like that's somewhere on that identity list. White, like all these things, and it's interesting to think about like how a person votes partly depends on how they rank those things in their own own self-image. And that's true. And so if the person is like, like union is 13th on the list, but Christian is number 1, if they were really thinking about it, like that's going to influence how they vote as particular, flavor of say Christianity or whatever. Yeah. So it's kind of Republican versus Democrat. Like people have Republican on that list of a self-identity, just it's like who they are, and they're never going to vote for a Democrat because they think of themselves as a Republican. Like that's number 3 on their ranking of who they are is Republican, right?
Right,
Or whatever.
right.
So it's like, how are you going to overcome that? You have to figure out how to how to put union higher on their list, or connect it with the thing that's on their higher on their list or whatever. Yeah, it's tricky. I was thinking about when you think about, like we were talking about, just unregulated capitalism. Like I get frustrated with this, like, capitalism good, capitalism bad discourse, like the simplistic, because I don't know, the other day I was somewhere, it was with my son, it was baseball practice, and at the park where it was a game, at the park where he was playing, there was this huge, very obviously expensively constructed wheelchair access to the baseball field, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big, long, because it was elevated, like, 30 feet off the street. So it was this big ramp system to get up there, and or stairs for the rest of us. And I was just thinking about, like, like a wheelchair ramp is a problem that capitalism would never solve, right? Because you think about, like, the people who say, well, yeah, well, like, the markets should solve everything. And it's like, well, the markets would never build a wheelchair ramp, because there's not, and like, some person defending capitalism might say, well, yeah, like, you have, if you feel like it's important for a business to have a wheelchair ramp, like, then, you're not going to go to the business that doesn't have. That's not fucking true, right? Like,
No.
not enough people. It would never make economic sense for a business to have a wheelchair ramp and to pay for that, unless they were required to by law.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that just capitalism plainly, just simply, unequivocally could not and would not solve. Like, another one, I was listening to this podcast, amazing podcast called Sold a Story, which was we were talking about the reading crisis, and just kids not knowing how to read, and the science of reading, and the whole language method. And it was like, part of the podcast was just talking about, like, how much sort of commercial energy, capitalist energy, built up behind the whole language method. They had lobbyists, they had a textbook industry, they had all these people, and there wasn't a counter force against that coming from the commercial sector. There was a lot of science that had been done about how kids learn to read, but it was easy enough for lobbyists, just like with every other lobbying industry, like cigarettes or whatever, to come up with their own experts, to pay their own experts, to have their own studies, and, like, pretend they had studies to support what they were doing, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's another one where it's like, you don't know, as a capitalist culture, the market isn't going to decide what the best way to teach kids to read is. For one thing, you can't, like, you have to make an investment in answering that question, and you don't see the results for a few years, right? Like, you're going to try things on different kids, and you can't instantly know which works and which doesn't. You're going to see that cumulatively over a few years, like, oh, these kids can read, these kids use this method, they can't read as well, whatever. Like, capitalism is never going to solve that kind of problem, where you need time, like multiple years where you're not getting money out of the results, right? And all that,
Mm-hmm.
or just education in general probably is something capitalism isn't going to solve, really. So it's just kind of interesting. And I know I'm speaking to the to the choir here, but I there's, like, this sort of religion of capitalism by people who, like libertarian people, who just sort of have this this sort of, like, fantasy that the market can do everything, and we shouldn't have a government at all, right? And it just seems so easily debunked. And I guess the question is, maybe it's not debunked, but the question is for that person, like, do you think wheelchair ramps should exist, or should we just say, fuck those people? Like, the market isn't going to make wheelchairs. And so then you kind of get to that root question. Like, does that person think, fuck wheelchair people? And then it's like, then you've discovered the real difference. Like, okay, that's the difference. It's not that you believe capitalism will solve this. You just don't care. You just don't think those people, you're happy to just cast those people aside. And just say that. Just say that. Don't pretend that capitalism is going to solve that problem. Just say that you're okay with not solving that problem?
Full disclosure, I spent 3 years on the Tucson Waldorf School board, and I was the site committee chairman. And I was tasked with finding and developing a new school building that could house K through, senior in high school, if possible, which was very, very hard because there had been this renaissance or upswing of charter schools popping up all over everywhere, and they were taking all the sites and the buildings. They had capital that I didn't have to. So I would look at a building with my architect, and it would be like an old warehouse building in a great location near a park or something. And then he would say, ADA compliance, you're not going to be able to get anybody. You can't use the second floor because we can't put in an elevator and we can't slap a thing on the side to, And I'd be like, there was part of me that would be like, oh, what a pain in the ass. Like, why can't I just—
It is a pain in the ass.
But it was like preventing me from using like 80% of the buildings that were kind of in the infill, because they had second floors and they were built before ADA rules. So there was no lift or any, and it started to drive me a little crazy. But I totally understand. There was this one church that I really wanted to buy. That was really right by Broadway, just south of the university, an old church. And it had a second floor with a bunch of school classrooms in it. And the charter school that eventually bought it, it was probably 200 meters long, and they took a wheelchair ramp that had multiple landings, and they bolted it onto the back side of the building. And it went for like 200 meters to get up to the second floor. And I said to my architect, I was like, by the time the kid or whoever is going down that thing, I hope their brakes work, because they're like kicking ass, at the bottom. And he goes, yeah, I mean, they somehow just squeaked by with this slapping this thing on the side, and the angles and all like the speed that the person would be going. I was like, damn, I'm glad that's not, I'm just glad that I didn't develop that, because it looks like shit and it looks dangerous as hell and no one wants to use it, But they got to use the second story. But it fulfills
the legal obligation or whatever.
Yeah. They would almost need one of those.
It complies with the law.
The old, the rope pull at the ski resort, you need that to get up the hill.
To get up it. Right. Like you need to shift your wheelchair into first gear.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. But anyway, so, no, it's very interesting. I think one other thought that occurred to me was, I remember when we were growing up in this Swedenborgian religion in our town, we were told that it was Christian. Yeah. They identify as Christians. And then when you go to college and you learn about sort of like the divine love and wisdom and how like the universe is created under the Swedenborg creation model, it's just like a non-dualist thing. It's like everything exists because these like electrons flow into the thing to give it space and mass, and you're like, I don't know, it looks like the outer car is Christian, but under the hood it's non-dualist. And I feel that way about American government. Like there's this push and pull. There's fascist oligarchic forces pulling libertarian forces. And then there's people who really say like, oh, we need to lean toward, I always say Denmark, like socialism, democratic socialism. And there's been this, I mean, think about the New Deal and FDR. And right before FDR, all the oligarchs just beat the shit out of all the workers, and that sort of cycle of, almost sine wave cycle of shifting toward the oligarchs, shifting back towards socialism, I think, that's where we are, right? We're at one of these deeper oligarchic fascist levels or places. So for people who don't know, the power went out at Milo's house. And my first thought, because we were talking about the Kali Yuga, was that the Iranians hit the air base, or maybe like North Korea hit the air base nearby, and that's why the power went out. Because
maybe we don't know.
We got a lot of solar power.
TBD, huh?
Yeah, we got a lot of the company that bought. And by the way, when I was a kid, the only advice my dad ever gave me about investing, he just wasn't that into it,
Yeah,
and he was a financial advisor, so
I know he got rid of all his baseball cards.
Right. Yeah.
He
wasn't thinking ahead, so that's
he's not the savviest investor. Yeah.
So he said, yeah, you should always buy municipalities, like buy the water company, because the stock, it feeds,
So that's
doesn't
when he played
change.
Monopoly, he bought the railroads and the power and water.
Yeah,
That was his thing. Yeah.
So anyway, but this Canadian very wealthy family bought the Tucson Electric Power Company.
That should be like, that shouldn't even be
Isn't
allowed. That shouldn't be a thing that's allowed to happen.
Yeah. And
There was a book, there's a great book by a historian named Tony Judt, Judt.
Yeah.
Who's wrote his epic sort of magnum opus is a book called Post-War. But he has a book called Ill Fares the Land.
Ill Fares the Land.
Ill Fares the Land. And it's really about kind of the like the private public partnership stuff that happens and sort of like the effects of that. He talks about like British Rail when it was like partially privatized, and then other things like power companies when they are turned into private hands.
Yeah.
Kind of what happens and what the outcomes of those situations are. So it just shouldn't be a thing that happens. Anyway, go ahead.
It is odd, right? Like, and I don't know how common that is actually. I do. Plus, like, what's weird about
this is the dystopia I'm talking about. That's good. It's all got to fall down.
What's really bizarre about it too is that, for instance, if you want to own the electric company, there are a bunch of sort of requirements that you have to, like you have to, and if you don't meet them, like I think you get kicked out. I'm not exactly sure how that works, but one thing, these guys were trying to be the most, like have the most solar power. And they've been investing a lot of money in the solar fields.
At least they're going with, okay.
Yeah. And one thing though, is that they asked the city if they could raise the rates to pay for the solar.
Okay.
And it was going to go up 14%. And I went to my union
That's pretty
members
significant.
and I said, I like solar. I would pay 14% more for solar. But there's a grandmother down the street in South Tucson who's raising 3 kids, and her kids are gone.
Yeah.
Or not in the picture, and she can barely make the food. She's on food stamps.
The current pay, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The current
So
bills,
it's like, so it's like, if you're going to put in a clause that says like, if you're below a certain income level, the rent, it doesn't go up. But then you've got this sliding scale thing happening and graduated.
It seems like solar, especially in a place like Tucson, solar should be on every roof.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't build solar arrays out in the desert. It should just be on every single structure.
Yeah.
Every parking lot. It should be the shade for every parking lot. It should it should be just affixed to every roof. And they should basically come to homeowners like you and say, hey, we'll put solar on your house, but we get the excess that it produces.
Yep. Well, one thing they did in Berkeley that I thought, in Berkeley, is there's some, I don't know how sunny it is there, but at Berkeley the city decided to let people borrow the money. The city took out bonds and gave them the money to put solar on. Yeah. And then they'd pay back through their real estate taxes. So if you sold the house, you just inherited the solar. So it was like the city made it possible to have the solar created, and then it's just built into the way the real estate taxes work, right?
That's how it should work, yeah.
I don't know. So that's a good way for government to step in and sort of push us toward a very practical kind of energy thing. And
solar roads should be a thing.
That's true. There's a lot of solar gain happening when it hits the road. It's true. I think Norway has some in development.
Yeah, there's some projects that I invested in one years ago. Like that was like a solar roads project. It never went anywhere. I still get emails from the people trying to do it. Like it's a good idea. It should be a thing. But I wanted to put a wind turbine on our roof. We don't have solar, partly because our house, when I had a couple of salespeople come by and they sat down with me when I bought the house, which was 28 years ago, and they said, your house seems to have been built in a laboratory to be everything wrong with putting solar on. Like it's facing the wrong way. The roof is, ours is similar. Like it's not even just the architecture. It's like the whole, we have gas, we have a gas stove, a gas dryer, a gas heat, gas furnace. And so and gas hot water. So
Yeah.
Eventually, some of those things will start to fail, and I will replace them with electric.
Right.
And then gradually, I'll have enough things that are using electricity that solar would make sense. But right now, they're like, your electric bill is like next to nothing. Your gas bill is crazy, but your electric bill is, but I sort of keep waiting for some of those appliances to fail at some point.
That's what our guy told us. He said, if you were to just go through and replace your appliance, all your light bulbs with LEDs, all the things that are like your hot water heater, so it's new and highly efficient, Energy Star compliant items. He goes, by the time you'd reduced your carbon footprint so much that you'll never pay back the solar cost because your bill will be low. And
it's so low anyway.
You're not making, so he's like, I can't and I'm he's like, and I'm a solar salesman.
Yeah.
So I'm walking out your door saying, don't do it because you can't.
That's the same thing here. I called like one of these things because they were offering these crazy promos to get it on your house essentially for free. Now we're not Berkeley. We had a different deal in San Francisco, but it was effectively free, and then one of the sort of the stipulations of the deal was that your excess power belonged to PG&E.
Interesting.
So your house would produce more power than you needed in your house.
Yep.
And so the excess went to the grid.
Right.
And which is part of what paid for you to have the solar, which that's just how it should work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah.
I wonder if we.
So like there's the off the grid people. They're like, I want solar, so I'm so self-sufficient. But this was a different system. It was like connected to the grid so that the grid could use the power.
Yeah, and it needs it during the day when there's sun out because that's when industry runs, right? Like all the factories are using. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is an interesting. I bet if I looked again, I think the panels have become more efficient.
Yeah,
and they don't need to be.
They're efficient. They're cheaper. This is one of those. So if we want to end on a note of optimism, this is one of the areas where I actually get kind of optimistic. Because if you look at the curves for the percentages of power in the US that are coming from renewable sources, for example, right?
Yeah.
And even during Trump, even during when you think the political climate isn't favoring that at all, it just hockey sticks way up. It's just going up and up and up and up and up. It's continually going up. It hasn't flattened at all, even under Trump. And I saw a chart the other day that was like economist predictions of the percentages, and the prediction in 2000, 2005, 2000. They all had it flattening out. Every one of their predictions, and it's like economists got that thing wrong over and over and over again. It just keeps hockey sticking up and up and up. So that's a good thing.
That is, yeah. It's fun when like the when we'll call it market forces cause change regardless of the stupidity of those in government. You know what I mean? Like like just when businesses just start adding solar because it's a good investment rather than like.
Yeah. And then once in a while you get the government that's like, you can't do that at your local level. We have a national policy or whatever, but mostly they don't do that.
Yeah, it's true. I remember there was, when we moved to Arizona, there was there was a law that was passed. Some lady complained we had like a clothesline. And I called it the fuck Dick Cheney line because it was, like I wanted to like dry my clothes like in the sun. Right. And someone complained about it, and then our neighbor said, no, it like falls. Visually? Yeah, they didn't like it. They said it falls under a city ordinance that anything that saves electricity or power, that's an alternative device or something, it's protected by the law. So I was like, and they said a clothesline is a solar. It's basically solar dryer. Yeah. And no one can tell you to take it down because it's protected by the law. I was like, nice. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I was like.
And then from then on, you hung like all of your most weirdest underwear, like right in her line of sight.
No, I moved to a house with a wall. So no one can see.
There you go. Yeah.
No one has. Yeah. Thanks, Satellite Haiku. Thanks for listening. Always good to hang out with you in this format.
Bye, friends.
Satellites? A satellite represents a journey, information gathering, this journey around the Earth.